Pope Francis preparing for a trip to the Holy Land this weekend. A lot of questions surrounding the pontiff's health. The rigorous schedule could be tough for even a healthy younger person. Many are concerned that it may be too much for the 77-year-old Pope, who has been living with only one fully functioning lung. Joining us now on set, Dr. Peter Hibberd, a physician specializing in emergency medicine. Doc, it is great to have you with us. And we take a look at the Pope. I think many of us are surprised to hear that he spent the bulk of his life with only one fully functioning lung. And against that backdrop, how worried should people be about the Pope's health on this upcoming trip?
Well, I'm not sure. This Pope doesn't really want to tell us how his health is. I mean, look at the schedule the man sets up for himself. It's rigorous even for any of us with two healthy lungs to do this kind of a trip. And to look at some of the trips he's done before, he really is rather, he gives himself a lot of heck on his trips. Now, I wasn't aware that he just had one lung till recently myself. And that's a big deal.
And as we talk about lungs and cardiopulmonary medicine, in layman's terms, what do a healthy set of lungs look like? And with two lungs operating normally, functioning in the body, when the Pope has the situation with only a single lung, what kind of stress does that put his body under now at the ripe age of 77?
Well, you'll talk to many young people who have had one lung removed, and they seem to just do very well. They adjust, that other lung expands out, and they do extremely well. We can take a look on the screen there and pretty well see two healthy lungs with the circulation coming into it, pumped in by the right heart, circulating around the lung to get the oxygen, and the left heart basically takes the rest of it and pumps it through our body. Now imagine if you lost one side of there, half your lung gone. Now, a lot of people would think that that would make them very tired and they couldn't do a lot. And that's to the contrary. When you're young, they can actually do almost anything, except for perhaps skydiving and silly things that you normally wouldn't have people who've had chest surgery do. However, as we age, we live on our reserve more and more and more and more. And as we get older, that reserve gets less and less and less normally anyway. Now, when you take a lung away, you've chumped out a lot of reserve that's built into our bodies. So what happens as we get older? Well, when the lungs start to, when two lungs start to stress out, the heart goes into failure. As anyone with lung disease will show you who has to wear oxygen, they end up wearing oxygen, they can't exert themselves very much, they get very tired. Now, what happens when you have one lung? Does this happen earlier?
It's tough to say, but it appears that obviously there is a concern here. And this has to do, you mentioned reserves, Doc, and I'm curious, is this a function of oxygen absorption in the body, or with aging does lung capacity just diminish, all things being equal, just as a natural function of aging?
I think as a natural function of aging, our lungs get a little stiffer, a little less compliant, a little less supple, and their efficiency decreases slightly, even in a non-smoker. In smokers, that's way worse, and obviously we know what happens there. Their lungs go into failure prematurely. And certainly he has his fair share of smoke exposure too, with the incense in the churches, through the fields and the dust in the areas he goes to out of field, so that you can't say that he's sitting in the best situation for his lung now.
Doc, we appreciate you offering for laymen some insights into this. Measuring lung capacity, how is that done by physicians?
Usually in the office we have you breathe into a little tube, and in turn there's a bellows at the other end of that will measure the rates of inspiration, expiration, and the diffusing capacities can be calculated from that. So the diffusing capacity of our lung in a healthy lung, non-smoker, is very good. But as we get into people who are getting older or who have been smokers, the diffusing capacity decreases, so the lung actually loses its ability to do what it's meant to do that, is exchange gases efficiently.
Dr. Hibberd, you mentioned you were surprised to hear about the Pope's situation with one lung. I think most of us are, to get some insights into his medical condition. And again, it prompts some other personal reflections, I think, for all of us, and some, again, medical curiosities from a layman's perspective. It is rare to have one lung, not unheard of, given difficulties that people had, like the pontiff as a young man. But physiologically, what other organs are we able to live without? Things we're born with that can be removed from the body and have a minimal of impact on our health.
Well, we can all live on one kidney as long as that kidney is healthy, and as long as we don't have diseases like diabetes that is chopping away at kidney function. So one kidney we can do fine without. We need our liver. We can do without our spleen. Much of the time that when the spleen is removed, we lose a little bit of our immunity, but we can do without our spleen. Our stomach is generally needed unless we plan on having artificial feeds through an enteral tube. And although gastrectomies are done and people do okay with their stomach removed, colon can be removed. We can take the colon out, not the small bowel, but the large bowel. The large bowel is responsible for water absorption. And so there's many people who have colon conditions that have to have resections, and they live well. They may have bags, or they may have part of a colon there. They still can live. Our appendix, of course, is a remnant, and we can all do without that. So as a general rule, a spleen is not a big deal to have taken out. An appendix we can do fine without. Kidney we can do one with. And we generally want to keep our stomach and colon if we have a choice.
Dr. Hibberd, as we look anatomically at what is needed or perhaps not needed for survival, our frame of mind, and people have said laughter is the best medicine, but we know that so many reverend clergy spend their time in hospitals visiting parishioners, the power of prayer. And given the background of the Holy Father, his involvement in the priesthood, a lifetime of prayer, in terms of his state of mind affecting his condition, or the power of prayer, in your experience, does that help patients?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I've seen many circumstances where prayers have yielded the most impossible results that we normally would see as impossible. So I am a strong believer in that, and I do believe that he's had the grace to be able to follow a schedule that even a normal man would have difficulty with. And the fact that he's able to put a tour together like this to see the people is a true credit to him.
Your background in emergency medicine and what that entails for you personally as well as a physician, and I know the lecture is that you can't get personally involved, but you suggested to me, and I just wanted to follow up on this, that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've seen miraculous recoveries from illnesses that would kill people, especially in the trauma of an emergency room.
I have seen and been involved in situations where I went through what steps I knew to go through, and the recovery seemed to be remote, if impossible, and I've seen recoveries. And I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's more to it than what I do when it involves patients' recoveries. And when we talk about attitudes, the attitude you have when you have an illness remarkably affects your outcome.
And one very important thing is the power of prayer. That is something that should not be neglected in part of a patient's recovery.
I believe so.
Dr. Peter Hibberd, your insights are inspiring in their own way, and we thank you for coming and offering to us laymen a kind of simple explanation of cardiopulmonary medicine from your perspective as an emergency medical specialist.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you here.
My pleasure.
So we're taking a look at this, and we want your comments on Pope Francis, his trip to the Middle East, all that entails geopolitically, but also the power of faith being good medicine. The Holy Father surrounds himself with prayer. We've just heard from the good doctor here the importance of prayer in recovery. If you have personal stories, we'd love to hear from you. Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email. You can use our address, connect@newsmaxtv.com, and there's Facebook. You can visit us at facebook.com/Newsmax. Now, stay with us. When we come back, Thailand's military leader declares a coup and arrests leaders from both the government and the opposition. That international story and more straight ahead on America's Forum here on Newsmax TV.